What happens if the ultimate sacrifice actually becomes the catalyst for the ultimate war? What if this moment of supposed peace becomes the beginning of something much bigger, much darker, and far more dangerous than anything we have ever witnessed on this show? Guys, I don't think we are paying enough attention to what comes next when a king decides to abdicate his throne. We are also focused on the immediate aftermath of the recent chaos, but we need to ask ourselves, what happens when the most powerful man in the city suddenly drops his shields? If you think the current quiet is a sign of resolution, you might want to look closer at the shadows. The story could be heading toward an absolute bloodbath, and the trigger might just be a decision made out of pure love. Let us quickly look at the current board. Right now, Sonny Corinthos is riding high after defeating Jen Sidwell, exposing Ross Cullum's crimes, and enjoying a new romance with Ada Justine Turner. He is contemplating a massive life change, leaving the mob behind to embrace a normal life and protect his family. Meanwhile, Jason Morgan has officially returned to Port Charles, making it crystal clear that his priority is his son Danny and that he wants out of the criminal underworld. On the other side of the chessboard, Jen Sidwell is sitting behind bars, seemingly neutralized. But there is a new mysterious piece on the board. A businessman named Hudson, who has just arrived in town looking for someone, already sending ripples of fear that caused Ethan Lovett to flee. The board is set, but the defenses of the Corinthos family are entirely down. This brings us to the first future. What if Hudson is not just a random businessman, but the most dangerous pawn on the board, directly connected to Jen Sidwell? If Sonny goes through with his plan to dismantle his organization, he is effectively stripping away the army that has kept his enemies at bay for decades. Who benefits from this? Sidwell and Hudson? Who is in extreme danger? Sonny, Carly, and every single person who carries the Corinthos name. In this scenario, Hudson operates entirely outside the traditional mob rules. He could use his vast, untraceable wealth and external networks to systematically dismantle the legal barriers keeping Sidwell in prison. We could see Hudson buying off judges, threatening witnesses, or orchestrating a massive violent breakout. If that happens, Sonny will find himself in a completely defenseless position. The very act of choosing his family over his power will leave his family exposed to an enemy who has no moral compass. I can see a future where Sidwell is freed, and his first order of business is to launch a coordinated, devastating strike against a retired, unprotected Sonny. This could lead to a terrifying reality where the Corinthos family is hunted in their own city. The tragic irony here is palpable. Sonny's desire to step into the light is exactly what allows the darkness to consume his loved ones. The bigger consequence may be that Sonny realizes too late that in his world, retirement is just another word for becoming a target. But let us pivot to a second future, one that completely shifts the entire landscape of Port Charles. If Sonny is targeted and his organization is dissolved, someone has to step into the power vacuum to protect the family. This is where Michael Corinthos is pushed into a corner he never wanted to be in. We have watched Michael spend years trying to legitimize himself, building his corporate empire with ELQ, Aurora, and now making strategic moves with Maxi's Deception shares. But what if Sidwell and Hudson's attacks force Michael to realize that corporate power cannot stop bullets? I can easily see a future where Michael makes the ultimate sacrifice of his own morality. He takes over the Corinthos organization. Not because he wants to be the new mob boss, but because he believes it is the absolute only way to build an army fast enough to save his father and his family. This path would be a massive, character-altering shift. But Michael cannot fight a seasoned psychopath like Sidwell and a shadow broker like Hudson alone. There is a chance that this desperate move by Michael pulls Jason Morgan right back into the life he just swore to leave. Jason promised Danny he would stay out of the mob, but if Michael, his nephew, the boy he helped raise, steps up to lead the syndicate, Jason's deeply ingrained loyalty will override his personal desires. Looking ahead, we could see a terrifyingly efficient new dynamic. Michael as the cold, calculating head of the family, and Jason as his lethal enforcer and chief strategist. Sonny would be forced to watch in absolute horror as his son and his best friend plunge back into the violent world he tried so desperately to save them from. This future changes everything, transforming Michael from a businessman into a ruthless syndicate leader. Now, let us explore the third future. This is the wildest, most unexpected possibility, but it is one that would absolutely shatter the current reality of General Hospital. What if Morgan Corinthos is not dead? What if the car bomb that supposedly killed him was a setup and he has been surviving in the shadows all this time? Imagine the sheer cinematic shock if Morgan suddenly returns to Port Charles at the exact moment Sidwell and Hudson launch their lethal assault on the family. Few people are thinking about Morgan right now, but his return would be the ultimate game changer. If this happens, the story could be heading toward an unprecedented alliance. We all know Michael and Morgan had a deeply fractured relationship filled with jealousy, betrayal, and massive differences in how they viewed their father's legacy. But faced with an extinction-level threat from Sidwell and Hudson, they would have to bury their hatred. I am envisioning a scenario where Michael, Morgan, and Jason form an unstoppable three-headed dragon. Michael brings the strategic corporate ruthlessness. Jason brings the tactical, lethal experience. And Morgan brings the unpredictable, explosive wildcard energy that nobody, not even Hudson, can anticipate. Sidwell would no longer be fighting a retired Sonny. He would be facing the full, terrifying wrath of the next generation of the Corinthos Empire. The sheer emotional weight of Morgan returning not to fight his brother, but to stand shoulder to shoulder with him in a war for their father's life would be television gold. Which path makes the most sense? If you ask me, the path that feels most likely is a combination of these tragic ironies. I keep coming back to the idea that General Hospital loves to punish its characters for trying to do the right thing. Sonny trying to walk away and be a good man for Justine and his family is a noble goal. But in the soap opera world, nobility is usually rewarded with chaos. I strongly believe that Michael is destined to take over the family business. All of his corporate machinations, his ruthless business deals, and his ability to compartmentalize his emotions have secretly been training him for this exact role. The path that feels the most narratively satisfying is the one where Sonny's retirement forces his family to become the monsters he tried to shield them from. And guys, I truly believe Jason Morgan will never be able to fully escape his role as the protector. His promise to Danny is beautiful, but if Carly, Michael, or Sonny are in the crosshairs of a freed Jen Sidwell, Jason will pick up his gun without a second thought. As for Morgan, it might be a long shot, but the narrative symmetry of all three Corinthos men uniting to fight a common enemy is almost too perfect for the writers to ignore. But we cannot stop there. The next shockwave is what truly fascinates me. If this massive syndicate war actually happens, what comes next? If Michael, Jason, and potentially Morgan successfully annihilate Jens, Sidwell, and Hudson, they cannot simply go back to their normal lives. The Corinthos organization will have been reborn, stronger and more ruthless than ever before, but under new leadership. What happens when the dust settles and Michael realizes he actually likes the power? What happens when Jason realizes he has broken his promise to Danny permanently, fracturing their relationship forever? And what about Sonny? The psychological fallout for Sonny would be devastating. He would have to live with the agonizing guilt that his attempt to find peace is what ultimately damned his children to a life of violence. The future continues to expand into a dark, compelling tragedy. We could see a complete role reversal where Sonny becomes the civilian, pleading with his mob boss son to show mercy, while Michael looks at him with cold, dead eyes. This is not just about defeating a villain. This is about the permanent corruption of a family's soul. The story is on the precipice of a monumental shift, and whatever happens next, Port Charles will never be the same again.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.